Stale roasted coffee, the heavy roll of suitcase wheels over hard terrazzo floors, a sharp beep from the scanning podium. Fluorescent lights humming against my retinas. My phone vibrates in my palm. A bright screen. A text bubble. I blink at the words. Landed yet. Kidding. Have the best time, babe. You deserve this. Love you. A tiny red heart. My thumb hovers over the glass. My breathing feels shallow. Nothing makes sense yet. I am 38 years old. I used to be a marketing director. Now I manage school lunches and dentist appointments in the Greenville suburbs. This is my first trip alone in 4 years. I sit at gate B7. The air smells like burnt sugar from the Dunkin' kiosk. I look at my left wrist. My mother's old Timex watch. The silver casing is scratched. The second hand ticks. 1, 2, 3. She never replaced the glass. I never replaced the watch. She told me right before her heart gave out at 54, do not ever be afraid to rest. Russell was supposed to be on this flight. A client trip to Charleston for his construction firm. Then Wednesday happened. An emergency at the site. He had to stay. Thursday morning his mother Opal called. Her sweet tea voice pouring through the speaker. The room is already paid for, Jolene. You should go. You need a break. I will watch the kids. Russell agreed instantly. He packed my bag for me. A woman sits in the empty plastic chair next to mine. I smell jasmine. Heavy and sweet. She looks about 30. Blonde hair down her back. A tailored blazer. A thin gold chain rests against her collarbone with a single letter pendant. The letter K. She holds her phone to her ear. Yeah, she says. The Palmetto Grand. Suite 412. The numbers hang in the air. 412. I look down at the boarding pass on my screen. I look at the hotel confirmation below it. The Palmetto Grand. Suite 412. My pulse throbs in my neck. I stand up. My legs feel hollow. I leave my bag on the chair. I walk to the desk. The gate agent is typing. Excuse me, I say. My voice sounds like it belongs to someone else. Can you check a hotel reservation linked to this flight profile? She takes my phone. She scans the barcode. She taps her keyboard. Both reservations are linked to the same loyalty account, she says. Under Russell Wyatt. That is my husband. The agent looks at her screen. She looks up at me. She blinks slowly. The other guest, the agent says, keeping her voice low. Her booking was made 3 weeks ago. Yours was added to the account 2 days ago as a separate reservation. But the system assigned the same suite because it is flagged as his preferred room. 3 weeks ago. Russell booked this room 3 weeks ago. Not for a client. Who is the other guest, I ask. A Miss Kendra Nolan. The agent hesitates. Her emergency contact is listed as Russell Wyatt. The airport terminal fades away. The noise of 100 people dragging luggage simply stops existing. I do not scream. I do not cry. A cold clarity washes over the back of my neck. Small, useless memories suddenly click together like a locked door sliding shut. The receipt from Fig and Olive last month. He called it a client dinner. The way he started charging his Apple Watch in the master bathroom instead of the family charging station in the kitchen. He said he needed it for work alerts. Little things. Innocent things. They form a perfect, sickening picture. Russell booked a romantic weekend for Kendra 3 weeks ago. His work crisis ruined his plan on Wednesday. He canceled his flight. But the room was non-refundable. And Opal stepped in. Opal, who knew about the trip. Opal, who suggested I take the vacation. Did Opal know about Kendra? Did my mother-in-law just accidentally send me to the exact same luxury suite where her son's mistress was supposed to sleep? I walk back to my seat. I sit down. I look at the Timex. The second hand still ticks. I open the Notes app on my phone. I create a new folder. I name it Charleston. I sit in the hard plastic chair and wait to see who I am going to become in the next 5 minutes. The overhead speaker cracks to life. Boarding for Zone 2. I pick up my laptop bag. The blonde woman stands up. Kendra. We form a line. 3 people stand between us. The jasmine perfume drifts back toward me. It coats the back of my throat. Kendra checks her phone. She smiles at the screen. Her thumb types a rapid response. She is wearing a small ring on her right hand. A delicate band with a tiny stone. Not an engagement ring, a promise ring. I step out of the line. I walk the 4 paces forward. I stand directly beside her. Excuse me, I say. My tone is perfectly polite, perfectly level. Kendra turns. She has bright blue eyes. Yes, are you going to the Palmetto Grand, I ask? Suite 412. Her smile widens. It reaches her eyes. Yes. Are you staying at the resort too? It is supposed to be gorgeous this time of year. It is, I say. My husband booked it for me. Russell Wyatt. The smile does not vanish instantly. It freezes. It hangs on her face like a photograph buffering on a bad connection. Then the light in her blue eyes dies out completely. She opens her mouth, closes it. Kendra whispers. He said what I ask. I do not raise my voice. I do not have to. He said you were separated. 12 years, I tell her. The words taste like old pennies. 2 kids, the same bed every single night. Does that sound separated to you, Kendra? Takes a step backward. Her shoulder drops. The strap of her carry-on bag slips. The bag hits the floor. The metal zipper clatters against the hard tiles. It is a small sound, but 3 people in the boarding line turn to look. We are 2 women standing in the middle of a crowded airport staring at each other. Neither of us raises our voice. Neither of us sheds a tear. I look at her hands. Her fingernails are painted with a flawless French tip. Her hands are shaking violently. She is gripping the handle of her purse so hard her knuckles are white. The tight burning knot in my chest changes direction. I look at this 30-year-old woman, and I realize she is standing in the exact same wreckage I am. Russell lied to me. Russell lied to her. He told her we were separated. He bought her a necklace. He booked her a suite. And when he could not go, he smiled at me and told me to pack my bags. The rage stops pointing at Kendra. It points squarely at Greenville. It points at the man who kissed my forehead this morning. It points at his mother who packed my children their lunch. Kendra does not say another word. She reaches down. She picks up her bag. She turns around. She walks away from the gate. She walks against the flow of passengers coming through the security checkpoint. She disappears into the crowd. I step up to the scanner. I hold out my phone. The machine beeps. I walk down the jet bridge. The air feels cool and stale. I do not call Russell. I do not call Opal. I open my phone contacts. I scroll down to the letter T. Tara Buckley. We shared a dorm room in college. Now she is a boutique divorce attorney living in downtown Charleston. I type a text message. I need you. I will be in Charleston by 9. Do not ask why yet. Seat 14. A. I slide into the window seat. I rest my head against the cold plastic wall. The engines roar to life beneath my feet. Greenville shrinks into a patch of green and gray squares below the clouds. The flight is exactly 75 minutes long. I open the Notes app on my phone. I tap on the new folder. Charleston. I start typing a timeline. When did the late nights at the office really begin? 2.5 years ago. Right around the time our son Cody started kindergarten. Russell booked the suite for Kendra 3 weeks ago. His trip fell apart on Wednesday. Opal pushed me to take the trip on Thursday. My name was added to the loyalty account on Thursday afternoon. Who added it? Did Russell do it to cover his tracks? Completely forgetting Kendra was still in the system. Did Opal do it? I think about our joint checking account. I manage the household budget. I clip coupons for groceries. I have never seen a charge for the Palmetto Grand. Not once. How did he pay for a luxury resort without me seeing the transaction? He must have another credit card. A card I do not know about. And the emergency contact. The airline agent said Russell was listed as her emergency contact. That is not a casual fling. That is a second life. My screen lights up with a reply. Tara, got it. My office at 9:30. Bring everything you have. And Joe, do not call him. Do not text him. Do not let him know you know. Promise me. I stare at the words. I type back. I promise. Tara sends another message immediately. One more thing. Are you in a one-party consent state? I know the answer. South Carolina. Good. Tara writes. Record everything. I lock my screen. I look down at my left hand. The Timex watch. The second hand ticks forward. My mother knew my father was sleeping with another woman. She never said the words out loud, but I knew. I saw her wash his shirts with a blank expression on her face. She stayed. She told herself there was no other way. She did not have a lawyer friend. She did not have a secret folder of evidence. She had me, and she had a mortgage, and she had fear. She stayed until her heart literally stopped working. I am not my mother. I open my photo gallery. The last picture I took is from 6 o'clock this morning. Cody and Lila are hugging my waist at the front door. Russell is standing right behind me. His hand is resting heavily on my shoulder. He is smiling at the camera. A perfect, reassuring smile. Relax, babe, he told me. You deserve this. I turn the phone completely off. I slide it into my bag. I close my eyes and wait for the plane to land. The heavy tires of the taxi hit the cobblestone driveway of the Palmetto Grand Resort. The air in Charleston was completely different from Greenville. It was thick with humidity and smelled like salt marsh and blooming magnolia. A valet in a crisp white uniform opened my door before I even had my wallet put away. I stepped out of the car and walked through the massive glass doors. The lobby was designed to make you feel small and important at exactly the same time. Dark mahogany paneled the walls. 3 crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, casting a warm, expensive glow over the polished marble floors. The air conditioning was turned down freezing cold. A scent diffuser pumped the heavy, sweet smell of jasmine into the room. It was the exact same perfume the blonde woman at the airport had been wearing. I walked up to the front desk. My rolling suitcase made a soft clicking sound over the marble seams. A receptionist with perfectly pinned hair offered me a bright, practiced smile. I gave her my driver license and a credit card. She typed my name into her computer. Her smile shifted into something much more familiar. It was the smile of someone greeting an old friend. "Welcome back, Mrs. Wyatt," she said. Her voice was bright and cheerful. "We have suite 412 ready for you as usual." I kept my hands resting flat on the cool granite counter. "As usual. Would you like us to send up the same champagne service you ordered last time?" she asked. I swallowed the dry lump in my throat. "Last time?" "Oh," I said. My voice sounded thin. I cleared my throat. My husband usually handles the details. I did not realize he booked this specific room so often. The receptionist chuckled politely. "Oh yes," she said. "Mr. Wyatt is one of our preferred loyalty members. Let me look." She tapped her polished fingernail against her keyboard. "Yes, he has booked with us 7 times in the past 2 years. Always suite 412. Would you like the peonies sent up as well? He usually requests the pink peonies." I moved my left hand off the counter. I pressed my thumb against the scratched glass of my mother's old Timex watch. I pressed hard until my knuckle turned white and a dull ache radiated up my wrist. 7 times. 2 years. I thought about the coupons I clipped for groceries every Sunday morning at our kitchen table. I thought about the winter coats I bought for the kids at the discount store because Russell said we needed to watch our spending this quarter. "He is so generous," I said. "Just the room key is fine for now." She handed me 2 plastic cards in a thick paper sleeve. I took the elevator up to the 4th floor. The carpet in the hallway silenced my footsteps completely. I swiped the key against the lock of suite 412. A heavy green light flashed. The door clicked open. It was a beautiful room. A massive king bed sat in the center, piled high with white down pillows. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the deep blue water of the harbor. A fully stocked minibar stood in the corner next to a velvet armchair. But I did not see a luxury vacation. I saw a crime scene. I saw the place where my husband brought another woman while I was helping our son with his spelling homework. I walked toward the small glass table near the balcony doors. A small gift bag rested right in the center. It was thick, textured paper with a crisp blue ribbon tied around the handles. A small white card was tucked under the bow. I pulled the card out. The handwriting was unmistakable. Russell always crossed his capital letters sharply. "Cannot wait for this weekend," the card read. Just a single initial at the bottom, the letter R. He had ordered this through the hotel concierge service a week ago. That was before his construction site crisis on Wednesday. He had canceled his flight. He had canceled his weekend plans. But he had forgotten to cancel the concierge delivery to the room. I untied the blue ribbon. I reached inside the bag and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside rested a delicate gold bracelet. The price tag was still stuck to the bottom of the velvet insert. $380. The name of a luxury boutique on King Street was stamped on the inside of the lid. I placed the box back on the table exactly the way I found it. I took out my phone. I took a picture of the bag. I took a picture of the handwritten card. I took a picture of the bracelet and the price tag. I uploaded the photos to the folder named Charleston. I slid the glass door open and stepped out onto the balcony. The wind coming off the harbor was strong and tasted like salt. I scrolled through my contacts and dialed Tara Buckley. She answered on the second ring. "Buckley Law, Tara speaking." Her voice was sharp and fast. "It is Jolene," I said. I heard a door click shut on her end of the line. The background noise of her office vanished. "Are you at the hotel?" she asked. "I am standing on the balcony of suite 412, I told her. The front desk welcomed me back. They said Russell has booked this exact room 7 times in the past 2 years. He always orders pink peonies. Tara did not speak for 5 long seconds. The silence was heavier than any word she could have said. "Joe," Tara finally said. 7 times. The same suite. That is not a fling. This is a second life." There was a gift bag waiting on the table, I told her. A gold bracelet. Almost $400. Listen to me very carefully, Tara said. The pace of her words slowed down. She was shifting from my college friend into my attorney. South Carolina is a fault state for divorce. That means if we can prove adultery, it completely bars him from receiving alimony. Not one single cent. It also means we do not have to wait a year living separately to file for a divorce. There is no waiting period. Do you understand what I am telling you? I understand, I said. I watched a white sailboat cut through the dark water in the distance. What do I need to do right now? I asked. Nothing visible, Tara said. You do not touch his accounts. You do not change any passwords. You absolutely do not confront him. And you do not say a single word to his mother. Can you do that? I thought about the last 8 years of my life. I thought about quitting my job as a marketing director because Russell said he made enough money to let me stay home with the babies. I thought about shrinking my entire world down to the size of a minivan in a suburban house. I had spent 8 years pretending everything was perfectly fine. I can do it, I said. Good, Tara told me. I am going to call Vera Hampton. She is a forensic accountant. She is the best in the state. We need to find out exactly where every dollar went before he realizes you know anything. I leaned against the metal railing. The metal was warm from the morning sun. Something was bothering me. A splinter in my brain that I could not ignore. Tara, I said, you told me not to tell Opal. Why? There was another pause. You told me Opal was the one who suggested you take this trip, right? Tara asked. Yes, I said. Russell canceled his trip on Wednesday because of a concrete pouring issue at the site. Thursday morning, Opal called. She said the room was already paid for, and I should take a vacation. She offered to watch the kids. And the gate agent at the airport told you the other woman made her booking 3 weeks ago, Tara said. Yes, I replied. Tara took a deep breath. So, your mother-in-law pushed you to go to a hotel room on Thursday, knowing her son had paid for it 3 weeks earlier. That is very interesting, Joe. That is incredibly interesting. The wind blew my hair across my face. Opal knew Russell was not going on a client trip. Opal knew the room was paid for. Did she know who he was planning to take? Did she suggest I go because she wanted to cover for him, completely forgetting that the other woman might still show up? Or was she just a retired bank manager who hated seeing a non-refundable deposit go to waste? I hung up the phone. I stood on the balcony for a long time. The smell of the ocean was clean and sharp. The smell of jasmine inside the suite was suffocating. I did not go back inside until the sun began to set. At 7:30 that evening, I sat on the edge of the massive king bed. I had not unpacked my suitcase. I opened my laptop and initiated a FaceTime call to my house in Greenville. My 8-year-old son Cody answered the call. His face filled the screen. He had a smudge of orange cheese powder on his chin. Mom, he shouted. Grandma Opal made macaroni and cheese, the good kind from the oven, not the box kind. I forced my mouth into a wide smile. That is wonderful, buddy, I said. Be sure you thank her. Where is your sister? Lila pushed her way into the frame. She was 5 years old and missing one of her front teeth. She held up a piece of wrinkled construction paper to the camera. I drew you a picture, Mom, she announced proudly. It is all of us at the beach. I looked at the drawing on the screen. 4 stick figures standing in a row on yellow sand. A tall figure in the middle with brown hair. Russell. His long, drawn arms reached out on both sides, wrapping around the smaller figures of me and the kids. It was a child's vision of a perfect family. A family that did not actually exist. It is beautiful, sweetie, I told her. My chest ached with a sudden sharp pressure. Keep it safe for me until I get home. The camera shook as someone took the phone from the kids. Russell's face appeared. He was wearing his favorite gray Henley shirt. His dark hair was slightly messy the way it always got after a long day at the office. He looked relaxed. He looked like the man I had loved for 12 years. Hey, babe, he said. His voice was smooth and warm. How is paradise? Is the resort treating you well? I stared into his digital eyes. He was sitting on our living room sofa, the sofa we picked out together 5 years ago. It is beautiful, I said. My voice was steady. Suite 412 is incredible. You really went all out. He offered that perfect, reassuring smile. Great, you needed this break. I am glad you went. I tilted my head slightly. The staff at the front desk were very friendly, I said. They told me you have actually booked this place before. Russell did not flinch. He did not stutter. He paused for exactly half a second. A normal person would never notice it, but I was not a normal person anymore. I was counting every single second. Oh, he said with a soft chuckle. Yeah, we did a couple of work retreats down there. The company likes the conference facilities. It is a solid property. 7 times, I asked. He let out another easy laugh. It sounded entirely genuine. Ah, no. They probably count every single booking the company makes under my corporate profile. Some of those were just day-use rooms for executive meetings. You know how the sales team gets. He was lying. He was lying with an ease and a fluency that terrified me. There was no hesitation, no guilt. He had built a separate reality, and he lived in it completely comfortably. As he spoke, his right hand came up and rubbed the back of his neck. It was a tiny gesture, a physical tell. 12 years of marriage, and I had never noticed it until this exact moment. The camera shifted slightly in his hand. The angle widened. Opal was standing in the background. She was in my kitchen. She was wearing a gray cardigan over a tailored blouse, even though it was a Friday night at home. She had a dish towel in one hand, wiping down the granite island. But she was not looking at the counter. She was not looking at the children playing on the rug. She was staring directly at the back of Russell's phone. She was listening to every word of our conversation. I watched her through the screen. When I said the word 7 times, Opal stopped wiping the counter. She put the towel down. She reached into her large leather purse resting on one of the bar stools. She pulled out a small navy blue notebook. She flipped it open. She picked up a pen from the cup by the sink. She wrote something down. She did not look surprised by my question. She did not look confused. She looked like an auditor making a notation in a ledger. She closed the navy notebook and slipped it quietly back into her purse. "Well," I said to Russell, "tell your mother thank you for watching the kids. I will let you guys get back to dinner." "Get some sleep, babe," Russell said. "Love you." I tapped the red button. The screen went dark. I sat in the silence of Suite 412. The only light came from the harbor, glowing through the glass doors. The gift bag with the blue ribbon still sat on the table. Russell had lied to me naturally. He had perfected the skill. But Opal was the true revelation. She had written it down. She logged the information the moment she heard me ask about his past trips. She was managing the damage control in real time. I opened the Notes app on my phone. I went to the Charleston folder. I typed a new sentence. "Opal has a navy blue notebook. She wrote something down when I asked about the resort. She knows." I set the phone face down on the mattress. I looked out at the black water of the harbor. Tomorrow I was going to Tara's office. Tomorrow I was going to hire a forensic accountant. Tomorrow I would start pulling the threads of my husband's financial life apart. But tonight I had to lie in a bed my husband had paid for 3 weeks ago to sleep with another woman. I had to sit in a room he had visited 7 times while I stayed home. And I had to accept the terrifying truth that the woman who raised him, the woman who kissed my cheeks and baked cookies for my children, was standing in my kitchen guarding his secrets. Saturday morning in Charleston always smelled like old brick sweet grass baskets and the heavy humidity rolling off the harbor. I walked down King Street, blending in with the crowds of tourists carrying shopping bags and iced coffees. I wore a navy blue cardigan and a pair of dark jeans. The invisible mom uniform. Nobody looked at me twice, and for once I was grateful for the camouflage. Buckley and Associates occupied the 2nd floor of a restored historic building near the Battery. The wooden stairs creaked under my flat shoes. I pushed open the heavy glass door. Tara was waiting for me in her office. She looked exactly the way she did in college, just sharper around the edges. She wore a tailored black suit. Her dark hair was pulled back into a severe knot. An espresso machine hummed softly in the corner of the room, filling the space with the bitter, dark scent of roasted beans. Behind her glass desk, a single framed document hung on the exposed brick wall. It was a copy of a bank check. I stepped closer to look at it. The amount line read $0.00. The memo line at the bottom read alimony payment from ex-husband month 14. Tara had framed his first missed payment. She used it as a trophy. "Sit down, Joe," she said. She did not offer me coffee. She did not offer me a hug. She knew exactly why I was there, and she knew sympathy would only make me cry. I did not have time to cry. I took the leather chair across from her. I pulled my phone out of my bag and opened the Charleston folder. I read her the list. 7 times, Tara repeated. She leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. Same suite. And a gift bag waiting for her on the table. "Joe, this is not a fling. This is a second life." "I know," I said. I kept my hands folded in my lap. My fingers traced the scratched glass of my mother's Timex watch. "Here is what I need you to understand right now," Tara said. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the glass desk. Her voice dropped into a steady, authoritative rhythm. "South Carolina is a fault state. That matters. It matters a lot. Adultery completely bars a spouse from receiving alimony. If we prove he cheated, Russell gets 0 spousal support. Not a single dime. And because it is a fault-based divorce, there is no waiting period. You do not have to wait a year living separately. You can file right now. I stared at the framed check on the wall. What do I need to do? I asked. Right now, Tara asked. Nothing visible. You do not touch his accounts. You do not confront him. You do not tell his mother a single word about any of this. I nodded slowly. I am calling Vera Hampton, Tara continued. She is a forensic accountant. She is the best in the state. We need to know where every single dollar went before Russell realizes you are looking. Tara picked up her phone and sent a quick text. Then she looked back at me. Her dark eyes narrowed slightly. One more thing, my friend said. You mentioned Opal was the one who suggested you take this trip. Yes, I replied. Thursday morning, after Russell told me he had to stay in Greenville for a concrete pouring emergency, and the gate agent told you the other woman's booking was already 3 weeks old, Tara said. She tapped her pen against the glass. That is incredibly interesting. Your mother-in-law pushed you to go to a hotel room she knew her son had already paid for. Do you think she knew Kendra was supposed to be there? I asked. The question tasted like ash in my mouth. I think we are going to find out exactly what Opal knows, Tara said. 30 minutes later, the heavy office door swung open. Vera Hampton walked in. She looked to be in her early 50s. She wore wire-rimmed reading glasses on a silver chain around her neck. She carried a massive black laptop bag that looked heavy enough to double as a weapon. Vera did not introduce herself. She did not ask how I was doing. She simply placed her laptop on the conference table, opened it, and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Show me your joint account access, Vera said. Her voice was quiet, methodical, and completely devoid of small talk. Show me any credit card statements you can see. Show me his pay stubs if you have them. I opened the banking app on my phone and handed it to her. I have access to our joint checking account and one joint credit card, I explained. I handle the household budget. I pay the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries. Vera typed the information into her secure software. She scrolled through the screens, her eyes scanning the columns of numbers with frightening speed. Russell has a personal American Express card, Vera noted. She pointed to a soft credit inquiry report she had just pulled. You do not have access to these statements. You have never seen them, have you? I shook my head. No. I assumed he used it for company travel. Personal cards are fully discoverable in divorce proceedings, Vera said. She took a sip of black tea from a travel mug she had brought with her. We will subpoena those records. But first, let me show you what is entirely visible right here in your joint account. She turned the laptop screen toward me. Look at these ATM withdrawals, Vera instructed. She dragged her cursor down a long column of red numbers. $400 here, $800 there, $600 last month, all labeled as business cash expenses. There are 37 individual cash withdrawals over the past 2.5 years. I stared at the screen. I did not understand. But those are just cash, I said. He told me he needed cash to tip the subcontractors at the construction sites. Vera let out a very small, very dry sigh. Husbands who run parallel lives need untraceable cash, Jolene. They need cash to pay for dinners they cannot put on a credit card. They need cash to leave tips at hotels where they do not want a paper trail. They need cash to buy gifts. She clicked to another tab. And look at your joint credit card. He is careful, but he is not perfect. I see 17 charges at local florists. I see 9 charges at restaurants located adjacent to luxury hotels in Atlanta and Charlotte, right on the exact dates he was supposedly traveling for work. I looked at the numbers. They were small amounts, $80 for flowers, $150 for dinner. Harmless numbers if you looked at them individually. But stacked together in a single column, they formed a massive, undeniable tower of betrayal. I need 48 hours to build a proper preliminary model, Vera said. She closed her laptop. But just based on his travel patterns, the cash skimming, and the luxury boutique charges I am finding hidden inside these restaurant categories, you are looking at 6 figures in marital dissipation. 6 figures. The air left my lungs. The room suddenly felt entirely too warm. I thought about the time Cody outgrew his winter boots, and I made him wear an old pair from the neighbor's son because Russell told me the company bonuses were delayed. I thought about clipping 50-cent coupons for laundry detergent. I thought about cooking cheap pasta dinners 4 nights a week to keep our grocery budget under the limit Russell had set. 6 figures. Hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on hotel suites, pink peonies, and gold bracelets for a woman 10 years younger than me. I looked at Tara. She was watching me closely, waiting for me to break, waiting for the tears. I did not cry. Something cold and hard settled in the exact center of my chest. It felt like a stone, a heavy, permanent stone. I spent 8 years pretending everything was fine, I told Tara. My voice was completely steady. I can do a few more weeks. Tell me what is next. Sunday morning arrived with bright sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Suite 412. I woke up alone in the massive king bed. I ordered room service. I drank terrible hotel coffee and watched the sailboats bobbing in the harbor. At 9 o'clock, I sat at the small glass table. The gift bag with the blue ribbon was pushed to the far edge. I placed my phone flat on the glass surface. I opened a voice recording application. I hit the red button. South Carolina is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows it is being recorded, the audio is completely legal and admissible in court. I was the one party. I dialed Russell's number. I put the phone on speaker. He answered on the third ring. Hey babe, he said. He sounded slightly out of breath, just out playing catch with Cody in the yard. How is paradise? It is amazing, I said. I injected exactly the right amount of warmth into my voice. The weather is perfect. The room is incredible. I am so glad, he replied. Listen, I continued, keeping my tone light and casual. I have been thinking. I might extend the trip an extra day. I could do a Monday checkout instead of Sunday. Would that be okay with you? The line went completely silent. 1, 2, 3. I counted the seconds in my head. Russell finally stammered. The smooth confidence in his voice cracked just a fraction of an inch. Yeah. I mean, sure. But Mom has that thing on Monday afternoon. What thing? I asked innocently. Her doctor appointment, he said. He spoke a little too quickly. Down in Mount Pleasant. She needs me to drive her. I will not be able to pick the kids up from school if you are not back. I stared at the recording timer ticking upward on my phone screen. Opal did not have a doctor appointment. Opal had been perfectly healthy for a decade. She bragged about her cholesterol levels at every Thanksgiving dinner. Russell needed me back in Greenville by Sunday night. Why? Because Kendra was back in town, because Kendra had called him from the airport crying about the woman she met at the gate, or maybe he just needed his perfectly constructed life to return to its scheduled programming. Oh, I said, layering my voice with fake concern. Opal has a doctor appointment. She did not mention it to me. Is everything all right? It is just routine, Russell insisted. Do not worry about it. Just come home tomorrow like we planned, okay? We miss you around here? Okay, I said softly. I will see you tomorrow. I tapped the red button to stop the recording. I saved the audio file. I titled it, Sunday Morning Lie. I uploaded it directly to the secure cloud folder Tara had set up for me. I stood up and walked over to my purse. I pulled out my wallet and dug through the leather slots until I found it. An old Visa card. I had opened this account before I even met Russell. It had a terribly low credit limit, and I kept it active just by paying a small streaming subscription on it every month. Russell did not have the login. Russell did not monitor the statements. I walked down to the front desk in the lobby. The same receptionist was working. I would like to extend my stay in Suite 412 for one more night, I told her. Of course, Mrs. Wyatt, she smiled. Shall I charge it to the card on file? No, I said. I handed her the old Visa card. Use this one instead, please. She swiped the plastic. The machine approved the charge. $289. It was a tiny amount compared to the 6 figures Vera had estimated. But as the receipt printed out, my hand trembled just slightly. It was the very first step. Independence starting at $289 a night. I was using my own name, my own credit, to stay in the exact room my husband had booked for his mistress. I folded the receipt and slipped it into my pocket. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text message from Tara. Did you get the recording? She asked. I typed my reply as I walked back toward the elevators. I got it. He lied about Opal. Save it to the cloud, Tara instructed. Make 3 copies. Always make 3 copies. I stepped into the empty elevator car. I watched the floor numbers light up as I rode back up to the 4th floor. The heavy stone in my chest felt permanent now. I was no longer a wife trying to save a marriage. I was a woman gathering ammunition. And I had a long, long way to go before I pulled the trigger. I returned to Greenville on Monday afternoon and slipped right back into my life like a ghost haunting my own house. The hardest part was not the anger. The hardest part was the performance. I washed Cody's soccer uniform, I made chicken parmigiana from a recipe box, and I let Russell kiss my cheek when he walked through the front door. Every time his lips touched my skin, it took an immense physical effort not to flinch. I just smiled, asked him about his day, and retreated to the kitchen to chop onions with entirely too much force. By Monday of the 2nd week, the waiting had settled deep into my bones. I locked the door to the guest bedroom right after Russell left for the office. I sat at the small desk in the corner and opened my laptop. Tara and Vera were already waiting in the virtual meeting room. Vera Hampton did not waste time with greetings. The forensic accountant shared her screen, immediately bringing up a complex spreadsheet filled with color-coded rows. "I have preliminary answers," Vera said. Her voice carried the dry clinical tone of a surgeon explaining a complicated fracture. "I spent the weekend pulling indirect evidence from the banking patterns. Russell keeps all of his affair spending on a personal American Express card. That is why you never saw a single suspicious charge on your joint account statements. You do not have access to that card, and he pays the bill from a separate personal checking account." I leaned closer to the monitor. "But how does he fund that separate account?" I asked. "His entire salary goes directly into our joint checking." Vera adjusted her reading glasses. "That is where the pattern becomes incredibly interesting. Your joint account does not show any luxury resorts or expensive dinners, but it does show cash withdrawals. Over the past 2.5 years, Russell has made 37 individual withdrawals from the ATM. $400 here, $800 there, all labeled as business cash expenses in your budgeting software. It totals roughly $18,000 in missing cash. He told me he needed cash to tip subcontractors at the job sites," I whispered. My stomach dropped as the lie finally unraveled in the bright light of day. He needed cash for things he absolutely could not put on paper. Tara corrected from her video window. "Valets, bartenders, small gifts, cash leaves no trail. But $18,000 over 2 years is not enough to cover luxury suites and fine jewelry," Vera continued. She clicked to a new tab on her spreadsheet. "This is the second part of the concealment system. I found 37 incoming wire transfers, deposited directly into Russell's personal checking account. The timing is precise. Within 48 hours of every major billing cycle on his secret American Express, fresh money arrives to cover the balance." "Who is sending the money?" I asked, though my chest already felt tight with the anticipation of the answer. Vera highlighted a column of routing numbers. "Someone with a visa ending in 4417, she explained. The routing number traces directly to First Palmetto Bank, specifically the Mount Pleasant branch. "That is Opal's bank," I said. Tara nodded slowly on the screen. The lawyer leaned forward, resting her chin on her steepled fingers. "So here is the entire picture, Jolene. Russell charges everything on his personal card, keeping his spending completely invisible to you. Opal subsidizes his payments from her own retirement accounts, so his personal balance never drops enough to raise questions at tax time. It is a highly coordinated 2-person concealment system." "How much?" I asked. I needed to hear the exact number. $42,000, Vera answered without hesitation. "Over the past 2.5 years, your mother-in-law has wired $42,000 to her adult son to bankroll his extramarital affair." The silence in the guest bedroom grew heavy enough to crush me. I pictured Opal sitting at her spotless granite island in Mount Pleasant. I imagined her opening that navy blue notebook, checking her son's credit card cycle, and carefully wiring money to fund my destruction. She probably did it while sipping her morning coffee. She treated her son's infidelity like a utility bill that needed to be managed. This was not a mother who simply found out and kept quiet to protect her boy. This was an active co-conspirator. She was a retired bank manager running a shadow economy to protect a serial cheater. "We are going to subpoena the actual American Express statements soon," Tara said gently. "But the pattern is undeniable. You are fighting a family syndicate, Joe." "I will be ready," I told them. I closed the laptop. My hands were perfectly steady. By Wednesday afternoon, the autumn air in Greenville carried a slight chill. I sat in the driver's seat of my minivan in the pickup line outside Cody's elementary school. The smell of exhaust fumes and crushed fallen leaves drifted through the cracked window. Children wearing oversized backpacks ran across the grass while parents waved from their idling cars. It was the most ordinary scene in the world, and I was about to do something completely covert. My phone vibrated in the cup holder. Russell's daily check-in call. I opened my recording application, hit the red button to capture the audio, and answered the phone on speaker. South Carolina law protected me, and I was building my fortress one recorded lie at a time. "Hey," Russell said. His voice was bright and energetic. "How were the boys today?" "Good," I replied, matching his cheerful tone perfectly. "Cody got an A on his science project. He is so proud of himself." "That is my boy," Russell laughed. "Tell him we will get ice cream after dinner to celebrate." I watched a crossing guard hold up a red stop sign. "Listen," I said, letting a thoughtful hesitation slip into my voice. "I have been thinking about vacations. What if we do a family trip to the Palmetto Grand? You said it was a solid property. The kids would absolutely love the beach down in Charleston." The silence on the other end of the line was immediate and thick. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. I counted them mentally, visualizing the panic flaring behind my husband's eyes. He would never take his family to the Palmetto Grand. He could never walk through those massive glass doors with his wife and children because the receptionist would inevitably ask why he did not need the pink peonies this time. The staff knew his face. They knew his habits. They knew his other woman. Russell finally stammered. He cleared his throat. Yeah, maybe. But that place is more of an adults-only vibe, you know. It might be too boring for the kids. They have a dedicated family wing, I pushed gently. I checked the website this morning. Let me think about it, he deflected quickly. We should probably try somewhere new. A completely fresh experience for the family. Sure, I said. Whatever you think is best. I ended the call and saved the recording. The satisfaction of catching him in the trap felt sharp and clean. He thought he was managing a clueless, dependent wife. He had no idea I was quietly studying the blueprints of his lies. Later that night, long after the children were asleep and Russell was snoring softly in the master bedroom, I sat at the kitchen island with my laptop. An email from Vera arrived at exactly 11 o'clock. She had managed to cross-reference the loyalty point accumulations with local merchants in Charleston. She found the jewelry charges. $4,800 spent at a single boutique on King Street over 2 years. When she combined the estimated resort costs, the fine dining, the jewelry, the flowers, and the cash withdrawals, she finally had a preliminary total, $114,000. I stared at the glowing screen until the numbers blurred. $114,000 drained from our marital estate and subsidized by Opal to maintain a parallel universe. I thought about all the nights I felt guilty for buying a new paperback book instead of checking it out from the library. I thought about the sheer volume of deceit required to look me in the eye every single day while spending a fortune on someone else. I closed the laptop and walked over to my purse resting on the kitchen counter. I needed a distraction. I needed to organize something physical. I started pulling old receipts and candy wrappers out of the leather pockets, sorting them into a pile for the trash. My fingers brushed against a crumpled piece of thermal paper tucked deep in the side compartment. I pulled it out and smoothed it flat against the granite counter. It was a restaurant receipt from Fig and Olive in downtown Greenville. The date was from late last month. I had found it in Russell's suit pocket while taking his clothes to the dry cleaner. When I asked him about it, he kissed my forehead and called it a boring client dinner. I had tossed it into my purse and forgotten about it entirely. I looked at the total. $340 for 2 people, 2 expensive entrees, 2 appetizers, and an upscale bottle of wine. I picked up my phone. I opened the Facebook application and typed Kendra Nolan into the search bar. Her privacy settings were remarkably loose for someone dating a married man. I scrolled through her public timeline until I found a post from late last month. A picture of Kendra holding a glass of red wine, smiling brilliantly in the dim lighting of a restaurant. The caption read, "Best birthday dinner ever." He always knows exactly how to spoil me. The date on her post perfectly matched the date on the crumpled receipt. I took a clear photograph of the paper and emailed it to Vera with a short note. Look at the payment method on this receipt. My phone chimed 5 minutes later. Vera was still awake, working through the numbers. Her reply was brief and devastating. He paid with the corporate American Express card belonging to Mill Creek Construction, Vera wrote. He expensed a $340 birthday dinner for his mistress and claimed it as client entertainment. I read the words 3 times to ensure I understood the magnitude of what I was looking at. This was no longer just a case of a husband stealing from his family. This was a chief financial officer stealing from his company. If he was using corporate cards for his affair expenses, he was committing corporate fraud. This is incredibly important, Vera sent in a follow-up message. Do you want me to flag this as a separate legal issue? We can use this as massive leverage. I thought about Russell's career. He built his entire identity around being the successful provider. He loved the title, the corner office, and the respect of his colleagues. He used that success as a shield, convincing himself that as long as he paid the mortgage, he was entitled to a secret life. He compartmentalized his sins perfectly. Flag it, I typed back. Put it in a separate file. But do not do anything with it yet. We wait. I turned off the kitchen lights and stood in the dark. The house was completely silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator. The Timex watch on my wrist ticked steadily against my skin. I was gathering my weapons one by one. The financial records, the secret recordings, the corporate fraud, Opal's wire transfers. I walked slowly up the stairs toward the master bedroom. I listened to my husband breathing in the dark, completely unaware of the storm gathering directly above his head. He thought I was just a mother wrapped in a cardigan, too dependent and too tired to ever ask a real question. He had severely underestimated the woman he married, and by the time he finally realized his mistake, it was going to be entirely too late. Friday night settles over Greenville with a heavy, damp chill. The house is completely asleep. Cody and Lila are tucked into their beds down the hall, their breathing slow and rhythmic. I sit on the edge of the mattress in the master bedroom. My bare feet rest flat against the cold hardwood floor. I take off my mother's old Timex watch and place it face down on the wooden nightstand. I do not want the memory of her watching what I am about to do. I open the recording application on my phone, tap the red button, and slide the device under the edge of my pillow. Russell walks into the bedroom a few minutes later. He kicks off his leather loafers. He reaches for the metal clasp of his belt. It is the exact same domestic routine he has followed for 12 years, a familiar dance of a man coming home to a safe, predictable life. "Kendra Nolan," I say. I do not turn around. I keep my eyes fixed on the dark window glass reflecting the dim light of the bedside lamp. The metallic clink of his belt buckle stops instantly. The silence in the room becomes absolute heavy enough to ring in my ears. I count the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What Russell asks, his voice is tight and entirely stripped of its usual smooth warmth. "Suite 412, I say, keeping my tone perfectly flat and measured. The Palmetto Grand. 7 times in 2 years. Pink peonies every single visit. A gift bag waiting on the glass table with a $380 bracelet inside that was definitely not for me. Joe," he starts. His breathing hitches. "Joe, wait. Sit down," I tell him. He does not sit on the edge of the bed next to me. He crosses the room and takes the small upholstered chair by the window. We are 8 feet apart. I finally turn my head to look at him. His face is entirely drained of color. "It is not what you think," he says. His hands are empty, resting open on his knees. "Russell," I reply. My voice does not rise. I do not yell. I was at the gate. She was standing right next to me in the boarding line. The exact same booking, the exact same luxury suite. Your name listed on her airline file as her emergency contact. Do not tell me it is not what I think. His right hand drifts up to the base of his neck. He rubs the skin there right over his collar. It is the physical tell I never noticed, until I watched him lie to me on a video call from that hotel room. Now I see it clearly glowing like a warning beacon in the shadows of our bedroom. "Okay," he breathes out. His entire demeanor shifts in a fraction of a second. The denial vanishes, replaced instantly by the desperate, calculating scramble of negotiation. "Okay, Joe, I messed up. I know I did. But it is over. I ended it. After you left for the airport, I called her and I ended the whole thing." "You ended it after I found out," I remind him. "I ended it," he repeats, his voice cracking slightly as he leans forward. His eyes look red and wide, pleading for a lifeline. "That is what matters. I love you. I love our kids. Tell me what you need me to do to fix this." He says the exact words Tara warned me about. "They always say it is over, and they always ask what you need them to do." It is pure damage control masquerading as remorse. But sitting there in the room where we brought our babies home, looking at the man who built this entire life with me, a tiny, foolish part of my brain desperately wants to believe him. 12 years of shared history pulls sharply at my chest. The instinct to seek safety almost overwhelms the instinct to seek the truth. "A post-nuptial agreement," I say slowly. "Full transparency on every single financial account moving forward. And mandatory marriage counseling." "Done," he answers immediately. He speaks far too quickly, his relief practically spilling onto the floor. "All of it. I will sign whatever you want, Joe. Whatever makes you feel secure." It is a false victory. He agrees to everything so easily because he thinks he still holds all the power. He thinks I am just a dependent stay-at-home mother who got incredibly lucky and stumbled across a stray hotel receipt. He does not know I have a forensic accountant mapping his secret American Express card. He does not know I have an attorney building an aggressive fault-based divorce case. He does not know I am tracing his mother's wire transfers. He negotiates completely blindly, offering me the illusion of safety while keeping his shadow economy hidden securely in his back pocket. He stands up and walks over to the bed. He wraps his arms around me. I let him hold me. The familiar smell of his expensive aftershave fills my nose, a scent I bought him for Christmas 2 years ago. I rest my chin on his shoulder and stare at the blank wall, wondering how many times he used these exact same arms to pull Kendra close before driving home to me. My phone continues to record every single word. Tomorrow I will send the audio file to Tara. By Sunday afternoon, Russell has transformed into the absolute perfect husband. He wakes up early to make chocolate chip pancakes for the kids. He vacuums the living room rug without being asked. He fixes a loose hinge on the back door. He is performing a masterpiece of domestic repentance. I sit at the kitchen island with my laptop open, reviewing the joint bank statements. Vera asked me to double-check. I am going to take Lila outside to look at the garden, Russell announces, wiping his hands on a clean dish towel. He walks out the back door, leaving his phone resting face up on the cool granite counter. A minute later, the device vibrates against the stone. The screen lights up, illuminating the kitchen shadows. A text message notification appears on the lock screen. I do not have his passcode, and Tara was extremely clear that I should never access his devices without his permission. But a lock screen notification is visible to anyone walking past the counter. It is completely fair game. I lean over the granite. The text is from Opal. Mom, did she sign the post-nuptial agreement yet? Call me when you can. We need to talk about the accounts before she gets a lawyer. I stare at the glowing letters until they blur. We need to talk about the accounts. The word "we" echoes loudly in my head. Not Russell alone. Opal and Russell, together. Before she gets a lawyer. Opal is actively coaching him. She is managing the crisis from 2 hours away. She knows exactly what is hiding in those financial accounts, and she is helping him build a fortress around the money, before I can find a way inside. I pull my own phone from my pocket and snap a clear, high-resolution photograph of his screen. Then I step into the walk-in pantry, pull the heavy wooden door shut behind me, and dial Tara. Opal just texted him, I whisper, keeping my voice low in the dark, cramped space, smelling of dry cereal and coffee beans. She asked if I signed the agreement yet, and she said they need to talk about the accounts before I get a lawyer. Tara lets out a sharp, satisfied breath. She does not know you already have one. No, I say. Neither does Russell. Good, Tara replies, her voice turning crisp and entirely professional. That means everything he has agreed to so far, including the promise to sign whatever you want, was said without legal advice. He waived his rights voluntarily on that recording. And his mother is actively conspiring in writing to protect marital assets from you. Jolene, this just became a significantly stronger case. I lean my forehead against a cool wooden shelf. This story is no longer just about a husband and his mistress. This is about a mother who financed, concealed, and managed her son's infidelity for years. Opal knows exactly how much money left her bank account. She wrote every single transaction down in that navy blue notebook. She probably balanced the affair ledger while drinking her morning tea. My own mother was a single parent who worked 60 hours a week just to keep the lights on. She had absolutely nobody to help her when my father betrayed her, but she also had nobody actively working against her. I have Tara and Vera standing firmly behind me, but I have Opal standing directly in my way, armed with decades of banking experience and a ruthless desire to protect her son. My mother lost because she lacked resources. I refuse to lose. I step out of the pantry just as the back door opens. Russell walks in, carrying Lila on his shoulders, both of them laughing loudly. I walk over to the counter, push his phone slightly toward him, and offer a wide, pleasant smile. How is the garden looking, I ask. Great, he says, smiling back down at me. He picks up his phone and slides it into his pocket without even checking the screen. He thinks he has won. He thinks the promise of a postnuptial agreement will save him. I look at him and realize the woman who wanted to save this marriage died at the airport gate. The woman standing in the kitchen is only interested in winning the divorce. Tuesday morning arrives with a heavy autumn rain, washing the last dying leaves from the oak trees in the front yard. I drop Cody and Lila off at school and drive straight back to the empty house. I settle into the guest bedroom, lock the door, and open my laptop for a scheduled video call with Tara and Vera. Vera shares her screen immediately. The spreadsheet has grown significantly since our last meeting. The columns are filled with hard, undeniable numbers highlighted in bright colors that make my eyes ache. I have the complete forensic picture, Vera says, pushing her wire-rimmed glasses up the bridge of her nose. Here is the documented spending on the extramarital relationship over the past 2.5 years. 7 stays at the Palmetto Grand Resort, totaling $22,400. Confirmed restaurant charges matching the exact affair dates add up to $14,600. Jewelry from the King Street Boutique is $4,800. Gifts of clothing, which I tracked through returns, Kendra posted on an online resale application, total $6,800. Weekend getaways to Kiowa Island and Hilton Head run $8,400. He even co-signed and paid the deposit on Kendra's downtown apartment for $4,200. Miscellaneous expenses for ride shares, event tickets, and luxury spa treatments come to $7,600. She pauses and lets the avalanche of numbers sink in. That is $72,000 charged entirely to Russell's secret American Express card. A card you never saw. I watch the total appear at the bottom of the column in bold red ink. I think about the times I told Cody he could not join the travel baseball team because the registration fees were just too high this season. But that is not all. Vera continues breaking through my thoughts. We have the 37 individual wire transfers from Opal's Visa directly into Russell's personal checking account, perfectly timed to pay down that American Express balance before the interest hit. Those transfers total $42,000. And finally, the $18,000 skimmed in cash from your joint account under the guise of business expenses. So, the total visible cost of the affair, Tara chimes in, her voice thick with disgust, is $114,000, paid for by a combination of marital assets and a direct calculated subsidy from your mother-in-law. Oh, and let us not forget the $8,200 in corporate fraud from charging those romantic dinners as client entertainment on his company card. There is one more thing, Vera says. Her tone drops, becoming even more serious. The clinical detachment vanishes completely. I pulled the transaction history going back further. 4 to 5 years ago, long before Kendra Nolan was in the picture, a nearly identical pattern exists. I stop breathing. The steady ticking of the rain against the window suddenly sounds incredibly loud. Credit card charges for a different resort property called the Beaufort Inn, Vera explains quietly. Fine dining on random Tuesday nights, and the exact same wire transfers from Opal to cover the spending spikes. This is not a 2.5-year mistake, Vera says gently. This pattern goes back at least 5 years. It was a completely different woman. Your husband is a serial cheater, Jolene, and his mother has been funding the operation the entire time. I stare at the spreadsheet. $114,000 just for Kendra. An unknown massive amount for the woman before her. A parallel financial universe built solely to sustain my husband's endless betrayals. All while I served cheap dinners, mended torn clothing, and swallowed my own career ambitions to protect our family budget. The dissipation claim alone completely changes the math on your equitable distribution, Tara explains, bringing the focus back to the legal strategy. When you add the fault-based divorce, the permanent bar on his alimony, and the fact that his own mother financed the concealment, a judge is going to look at this and see a massive family conspiracy. They are going to hand you the keys to the kingdom. I close my eyes. I see Opal's perfectly manicured hands resting on that navy blue notebook. I hear Russell's smooth-lying voice echoing through the kitchen. I feel the scratched glass of my mother's Timex watch under my fingertips. They stole 8 years of my life and paid for it with my own money. I open my eyes, and the final lingering piece of my fear burns away completely, leaving absolutely nothing behind but a cold, devastating resolve. The following Friday evening, the silence in our living room felt heavy, like the air before a summer storm in the Low Country. I sat on the sofa, a yellow legal pad resting on my knees, watching the flickering light of the television. Russell walked into the room, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood. He didn't look at me. Instead, he slid a stapled document across the coffee table toward my lap. It was a printed postnuptial agreement. I picked it up and read the first few lines. This wasn't the document Tara and I had discussed. This was something drafted in the shadows of a corporate office. The terms were cold and surgical. Russell would retain sole control of all retirement accounts. The house could only be sold by mutual agreement, which meant it would never be sold as long as he wanted to keep me trapped there. In exchange for my signature, I would receive a monthly allowance of $3,500. The fine print at the bottom called it a mutual release of all claims arising from marital difficulties. It was a legal gag order. I had a buddy at work look this over, Russell said. He stood by the fireplace, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. It is fair, Joe. It protects both of us. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the desperation behind his smooth CFO mask. A buddy at work, I asked. My voice was steady like a flat line on a monitor. Yeah, he replied. Greg in legal. Russell, I said, tapping the paper with my fingernail. This document waives my right to equitable distribution. It treats me like a tenant in my own life. His face tightened. His jaw muscle jumped a tiny rhythmic twitch. It is not he stammered. That is not what it is. I am not signing anything without my own attorney reviewing it, I told him. The silence that followed was different from the others. It was sharp. It was the sound of a glass vase cracking. Russell stared at me, his eyes wide and dark. Your attorney, he asked. Since when do you have a lawyer? I do, I said. I didn't blink. I didn't move. I let the truth sit in the room between us like a physical weight. Russell didn't argue. He didn't plead. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and dialed a number. He didn't even leave the room. He stood right there in front of the cold fireplace and spoke the moment the person answered. "Mom," he said, "she has a lawyer." I could hear Opal's voice through the speaker, even from across the room. It wasn't the sweet, honeyed tone she used when she brought mac and cheese for the kids. It was the sharp, clinical bark of a branch manager closing a failing account. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard the tone. Damage control had been activated. I woke up the next morning to the smell of White Diamond's perfume. It was a heavy floral scent that always seemed to linger in the curtains long after the wearer had left. I walked down to the kitchen and found Opal sitting at my table. She had already brewed a pot of coffee. A plate of croissants sat in the center of the granite island. She was wearing a gray blazer, her hair perfectly coiffed, looking as if she were ready to chair a board meeting instead of visiting her grandchildren on a Saturday. Her navy blue notebook sat right next to her coffee cup. Russell stood at the counter, his back to me, staring at his phone. The children were in the living room, their eyes glued to the cartoons on the television. Opal had arrived at 6 in the morning. She had taken command of the house before I had even opened my eyes. "Morning, honey," Opal said. Her voice was back to its sweet tea setting. "Sit down. We should talk as a family." I sat down. I didn't touch the coffee. I didn't touch the croissants. I waited. Opal leaned forward. She reached out and patted my hand, her skin feeling like dry parchment. "Jolene, sweetheart," she began. "Russell told me what happened, and I want you to know that I am heartbroken for you. No woman should go through this." I watched her. I waited for the turn. "But I also know my son," Opal continued. "He made a terrible mistake. Men are weak, honey. Lord knows Russell's father was no saint either. But we survived. I survived 34 years of marriage because I understood that family is bigger than one mistake." "One mistake?" I asked. 7 resort trips, 2.5 years. "That is not one mistake, Opal." She ignored me. She kept talking as if I hadn't spoken at all. "What I am trying to say, sweetheart, is that bringing lawyers into this will destroy the children. Cody and Lila need both parents under one roof. A divorce lawyer will take your money, drag your family through court, and at the end of it, you will be alone starting over at 38 with 2 small children. Is that what you want?" I looked at her and realized she was reciting my own nightmares back to me. She had spent 12 years planting those seeds of doubt, telling me how lucky I was that Russell provided for me, how nice it was that I didn't have to work. Every compliment had been a brick in a wall designed to keep me compliant. But she had just admitted something. Russell's father had been no saint. Opal had stayed. She had endured. And now she expected me to do the same, to accept a life of quiet humiliation, so that the Wyatt family name remained untarnished. "Opal," I said. My voice was low. "Did you know about Kendra?" Opal didn't flinch. She took a slow sip of her coffee. "Know what, honey?" "Before the airport," I said. "Before I found out." "Did you know Russell was seeing someone?" "Absolutely not," Opal replied. Her eyes were as steady as a hawk's. I had no idea. As she spoke, her right hand moved across the table. She placed it firmly on top of the navy blue notebook. She didn't open it. She just held it like a shield. I knew then that I was recording a lie. My phone was in my pocket, the one-party consent app running, capturing her denial while our forensic records showed 37 wire transfers from her account to fund his secret life. I didn't push her. I didn't call her a liar. I just smiled. "You are right, Opal," I said. "Family is the most important thing." I saw the tension leave Russell's shoulders. Opal relaxed her grip on the notebook. They thought they had won. They thought the invisible mom had been scared back into her cardigan. Later that evening, after Opal had finally left for the long drive back to Mount Pleasant, I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. I heard Russell in the garage. The door was cracked open and his phone was on speaker. I could hear Opal's voice clearly. "I have already called Alderman and Fisk," Opal said. "They specialize in high-asset divorce defense. If she files, we counter with emotional neglect. We tell the court she withdrew from the marriage, and Russell sought comfort elsewhere." "Mom, I don't want to," Russell murmured. "Listen to me," Opal snapped. "That forensic accountant she might hire, they will find the resort charges. Fine, but the transfers from my account to your checking, those are a gift from a mother to her son. A mother helping her child pay bills. There is no law against that. But the pattern," Russell argued. "My money, my choice," Opal said. "I was helping you through a stressful time at work. That is what mothers do." I backed away from the door, my feet silent on the kitchen tile. They had already built their defense. Emotional neglect. Gifts. They were going to turn my own silence against me. I sent an emergency text to Tara. Opal hired aldermen and Fisk. Emotional neglect narrative. Claiming transfers are gifts. I heard it all. Recorded. Tara's reply was almost instant. Alderman and Fisk are expensive but predictable, she wrote. The emotional neglect defense contradicts Russell booking 7 resort trips for another woman while you stayed home with the kids. Their narrative eats itself. And gifts. A pattern of 37 transfers timed to affair spending isn't generosity. It is a concealment system. Vera will destroy that on the stand. Monday morning brought a different kind of pain. I went to pick up Cody from school and his teacher, a kind woman with tired eyes, pulled me aside. Mrs. Wyatt Cody drew a picture today in art class, she said. I think you should see it. She handed me a sheet of white paper. Cody had drawn our house, but he had divided it down the middle with a thick, jagged black line. On the left side were me, Cody, and Lila. On the right side were Russell, Opal, and a fourth figure. It was just an outline, a person with no face colored in bright yellow. When I asked him about it, Cody said that Dad has a new friend that Mom doesn't know about, the teacher whispered. I walked to my car, my hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. Cody knew. He was 8 years old, and he had seen the yellow outline of another life. Russell had brought her around the children, or he had spoken to her while Cody was listening. He had exposed them to his mistress. My phone rang. It was Russell. His voice was cold, a sound I had never heard from him in 12 years. Jolene, we need to talk, he said. Mom's attorney says if you pursue a fault divorce, they will countersue for custody. Full custody. They will argue you are emotionally unstable, that you have been acting erratic and secretive. Recording conversations, they will call that obsessive behavior. Recording is legal in South Carolina, Russell, I said. I felt a strange, icy calm settle over me. Legal doesn't mean a judge will like it, Russell snapped. A mother who secretly records her own husband. How does that look? It looks better than a father who brings his mistress around his 8-year-old son, I told him. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. He didn't know I knew about Cody's drawing. He didn't know the yellow figure was already on paper. Russell revoked the post-nup offer. That afternoon, a man in a plain suit walked up to my front door and handed me a stack of papers. Petition for temporary custody. Russell James Wyatt. Opal was using my children as weapons. She was trying to take the only things I had left. I called Tara. My voice was so quiet it was barely a whisper. I am done being nice, I said. File everything. That night, after the children were in bed, I sat on the edge of my mattress. Russell was in the living room, having moved to the sofa. I held Cody's drawing in my hands, staring at the thick black line dividing our lives. Cody had seen the truth long before I had. He had seen the house split in two. And as I sat there in the dark, I realized that Opal and Russell had made a fatal mistake. They thought they could scare me into silence with the threat of losing my children. They didn't realize that for a mother, that threat is the only thing that makes you stop being afraid. The parking lot of the Publix on Woodruff Road is nearly empty at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night. The massive neon green sign hums, casting a sickly glow over the asphalt. I sit in my minivan, the engine cut the silence of the cabin pressing against my ears. I didn't come here for groceries. I drove here because I couldn't stay in that house for one more second. I couldn't breathe in the same air as the man sleeping on the sofa, or the ghost of the woman who had just tried to use my children to bury me. I looked down at my left wrist. My mother's old Timex watch. The silver casing is cold against my skin. The second hand jumps in the dim light of a street lamp. 1, 2, 3. I remember being 9 years old, waking up in the middle of the night to find my mother's side of the bed empty. I had found her in our old Corolla in the driveway, the lights off, her eyes closed, her forehead resting against the steering wheel. When I tapped on the glass, she had opened her eyes and offered that weary, beautiful smile. She told me she just needed 5 minutes of quiet. I finally understand those 5 minutes. My mother knew my father was a ghost who only came home to sleep. She saw the truth in the stains on his collars and the way he stopped looking at her when he spoke. She stayed because she didn't have a plan. She stayed until her heart literally gave out at 54. I spent 30 years thinking she stayed out of love. Now I realize she stayed out of exhaustion. But I am not 30 years ago. I take the watch off. I hold it in my palm, feeling its weight. It is lighter than I remember. For years, I thought wearing this watch was a way to honor her. I thought my sacrifice, my silence, my choice to disappear into this life was a tribute to the woman who raised me. I was wrong. My mother didn't want me to be like how you are. She wanted me to have the choices she never had. She wanted me to be different. The old want, the one that kept me up at night trying to figure out how to fix a broken marriage, dies right here next to a grocery store cart return. I don't want to save this family anymore. I want to save myself. I want Cody and Lila to grow up in a home where they don't have to draw jagged black lines down the middle of their drawings. I want them to see that a mother is not a martyr. I strap the Timex back onto my wrist. My hands are no longer shaking. I turn the key in the ignition. As I pull out of the parking lot, I dial Tara Buckley. File everything tomorrow, I say as soon as she answers. Fault-based, adultery, dissipation, emergency custody. I want it all on the record. Tara doesn't ask if I am sure. She simply says, I have the papers ready, Joe. Consider it done. The next morning, I am sitting in the school pickup line, the midday sun baking the hood of the van. My phone vibrates in the cup holder. It is a number I don't recognize. I answer it, expecting another telemarketer. This is Kendra Nolan, a voice says. Please do not hang up. The air in the van suddenly feels thin. I wait for 5 long seconds watching a group of kindergartners march toward the playground. I am listening, I say. I know I have no right to call you, Kendra says. Her voice is shaking, the sound of someone who has been crying for hours. But there are things you need to know. Things I couldn't live with myself for keeping. I keep my eyes fixed on the school's front doors. Russell told me your marriage had been over for 5 years, she whispers. He said you were emotionally separated since your daughter was born. He said you were only staying together for the children and that you both had an understanding. Of course he did, I say. My voice is cold, a sharp contrast to her trembling tone. He bought me a necklace, Kendra continues. A gold chain with a K. He told me he bought it on a business trip, but I found the receipt in his bag once. It was paid for with a credit card I didn't recognize. And then his mother Opal sent me a card. She thanked me for taking care of her boy. She told me I understood him better than anyone ever had. Opal bought that necklace, I tell her. I saw the records. She used her own card. There was a pause. Kendra lets out a jagged breath. I have screenshots, she says. Texts from Opal. She used to message me to check in. She encouraged the relationship. She told me Russell needed someone like me, and she mentioned a woman named Monica. She called her the girl before me. She said I was a much better fit for the family than Monica was. Monica, the woman from 5 years ago, the one Vera had found in the records. Kendra continues, her words spilling out now. Russell got drunk one night and called me Monica. When I asked him who she was, he said she was just an old girlfriend from college. But Opal's texts made it clear. Monica was there for 18 months. Opal helped him hide her too. I close my eyes. It is a machine. A mother and a son running the exact same play for a decade, just swapping out the women when the old ones got too complicated. The jewelry, the secret accounts, the enabling tea sessions. It was an industry of betrayal. I am sending you everything, Kendra says. Every text, every photo. I do not want his money. I do not want anything from him. I just want this to be over. I didn't know Jolene. I swear I didn't know. Kendra, I say. Would you be willing to testify? The line goes quiet for a long time. I hear her swallow. Yes, she finally says. I will. I hang up the phone. A minute later, my screen begins to chime with notification after notification. Screenshots. Opal telling Kendra that Russell deserved to be happy. Opal sending Kendra a link to an apartment listing in downtown Greenville. Opal promising to cover the deposit so Kendra could be closer to his office. It is all there. The fingerprints of a mother who didn't just look the other way, but actively built the bed for her son to lie in. I drive straight to the Greenville County Family Court. I meet Tara in the lobby. She is wearing a dark suit, her expression grim and focused. She hands me a pen. I sign the last page of the filing. It is done, Tara says. She hands the stack of papers to the clerk behind the glass. Russell is served 2 hours later. He is at his desk at Mill Creek Construction. He is in the middle of a budget meeting when the process server walks in. He is served in front of his colleagues, his boss, and the secretary he has smiled at for years. Opal is served at her home in Mount Pleasant. The process server calls Tara afterward to describe the reaction. She had opened the door, looked at the papers, and said, "Absolutely not," before slamming the door. She had called Russell 47 seconds later. I go back to my house. The house Opal tried to take from me, the house Russell turned into a stage for his performance. It is quiet. The children are at a playdate. I sit at the kitchen island at the exact spot where Opal sat with her croissants and her navy blue notebook. I open my laptop. I open the folder titled Charleston. There are now 47 entries, 23 photos of receipts and gift bags, 8 recordings of conversations. One forensic report detailing $114,000 in stolen marital assets. And now a new subfolder with 64 screenshots from Kendra Nolan. My phone vibrates on the granite. A text from Tara. It is done, she writes. Now we wait, and we prepare. I look at the clock on the wall. It is nearly time to pick up Cody and Lila. I stand up, stretch my arms, and walk toward the door. For the first time in 12 years, I don't feel like I am carrying the weight of the house on my shoulders. I am just a woman walking out of a room, and I am not afraid of what comes next. The Greenville County Courthouse felt like a monument to cold, hard reality as I walked through the metal detectors. I was wearing a navy blue blazer, a garment I hadn't touched in 8 years, and the fabric felt like armor against my skin. Tara was beside me, her briefcase bulging with the weight of our discovery, and Vera followed closely with her laptop bag. We were a small, quiet army of facts. Tara leaned in close as we moved toward the elevator. Normally this process would take 6 months of waiting for a hearing date, she whispered. But remember Opal's genius move. By having Russell file that emergency custody petition, she forced Judge Kemble to schedule an expedited hearing. She had to rule on temporary custody and temporary possession of the home immediately. Because they rushed us into court to take your children, we get to present our evidence now instead of waiting for the discovery phase to end. I felt a ghost of a smile tug at the corner of my mouth. Opal had tried to use the children as a weapon to bury me, and instead she had accelerated the very process that would expose her. Her counterattack had backfired before the first witness was even called. We stepped into the hallway and saw them. Russell was standing against the wall in a charcoal suit that looked too big for him. He looked thinner, his face drawn and sallow under the harsh fluorescent lights. Beside him stood Opal. She was wearing a gray Talbot's blazer, her hair stiff with lacquer. Her leather coach bag was tucked under her arm, and I could see the sharp corner of her navy blue notebook peeking out from the side pocket. Their attorney, a man from Alderman and Fisk, with silver hair and a face like a poker player, stood between them and the rest of the world. Russell looked at me, and for a heartbeat, I saw the man I had married. Then he looked at Tara's briefcase, and his eyes darted away. He couldn't meet my gaze. Opal, however, stared directly at me. For the first time in 12 years, the sweet tea mask was gone. Her eyes were hard and flat, her mouth a thin, bitter line. Her fingers were white where they gripped the strap of her purse. She knew the subpoena for her financial records had been served. She knew Kendra had been contacted. She just didn't know the depth of the hole she had dug for herself. The courtroom was filled with the smell of old oak and floor wax. Judge Patricia Kemble sat behind the high bench, her gray hair pulled into a severe knot. She was known in South Carolina for having zero tolerance for nonsense, especially in fault cases. She looked over her reading glasses at the assembled parties and gestured for Tara to begin. "Your Honor," Tara said, her voice ringing clear in the silent room, "we are here on a motion for temporary relief. We request a finding of fault based on adultery, a claim for the dissipation of marital assets, temporary exclusive possession of the marital home, and primary custody of the minor children." Alderman and Fisk stood up immediately. "This is a standard custody dispute, Your Honor. My client is simply seeking to protect his children from an increasingly erratic and unstable home environment." Judge Kemble held up a hand, silencing him without looking away from Tara. "I will hear the evidence regarding the marriage first," she said. Vera Hampton took the witness stand. She was methodical, her voice a steady clinical drone as she laid out the spreadsheet on the large projector screen. The numbers appeared in bright, unforgiving columns. Over a period of approximately 2.5 years, Vera testified, respondent Russell Wyatt spent approximately $114,000 of marital assets on an extramarital relationship. These funds were primarily moved through a personal American Express account that was hidden from the petitioner. Vera began to break it down. $22,400 for the Palmetto Grand Resort, $14,600 for restaurants, $4,800 for jewelry from a boutique on King Street. The room grew colder with every number she spoke. "But here is the mechanism of concealment," Vera continued. "I identified 37 individual wire transfers from a Visa account belonging to Opal Wyatt, the respondent's mother. These transfers total $42,000. Each one was deposited into the respondent's personal checking account within 48 hours of a major American Express billing cycle. The timing is consistent with a coordinated effort to fund and conceal the affair from the petitioner. Furthermore, $18,000 was withdrawn in cash from the marital joint account, under the label of business expenses, matching the dates of known affair-related travel." Alderman and Fisk jumped to his feet. Objection. The transfers from Mrs. Opal Wyatt's account are gifts from a mother to her adult son. There is no law against maternal generosity. Judge Kemble looked at the screen, then at Opal, then at the silver-haired attorney. Gifts that match the exact timing and amount of affair-related spending cycles 37 times over 2 years, she asked. Her voice was like dry parchment. That is a pattern for me to assess, counselor. Overruled. Continue. Vera pointed to the bottom of the screen. Our investigation into the loyalty records also indicates a similar pattern going back 5 years, involving a different property and a different woman, though the funding mechanism remained identical. This is not an isolated incident. This is serial behavior subsidized by a third party. Russell's face was the color of ash. He stared at the spreadsheet, his hand moving to his neck to rub the skin. Every person in the courtroom saw the tell. Opal remained frozen, her eyes fixed on the judge, her mouth tight. She was a bank manager who had been caught with a second set of books. Tara stood up. Your Honor, we would like to present the video deposition of Kendra Nolan. The screen shifted. Kendra appeared sitting in a sparsely furnished apartment. She looked exhausted, her blonde hair pulled back, her face devoid of makeup. She spoke clearly, her voice trembling only slightly. Russell Wyatt told me his marriage was over, Kendra said to the camera. He said they were separated and lived in different parts of the house for the children. I believed him for 2.5 years. During that time, his mother, Opal Wyatt, sent me dozens of text messages. She encouraged the relationship. She bought me jewelry. She told me I understood her son better than anyone ever had. She called me her dear. The text messages began to scroll on the screen. There was Opal's name. There was Opal's phone number. Take care of my boy, one message read. I am so glad he has you to turn to when things are difficult at home. The air in the courtroom felt like it was being sucked out of the room. Russell looked at the floor. Opal finally closed her eyes, her head bowing just a fraction of an inch. The sweet tea was gone. The family reputation was gone. All that remained was the record. Judge Kemble took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. I have seen enough for a temporary hearing, she said. The evidence of adultery and the coordinated dissipation of assets is overwhelming. I am granting the petitioner temporary exclusive possession of the marital home. The respondent will have 24 hours to remove his personal belongings. I am granting temporary primary custody of the minor children to the petitioner. Furthermore, I am ordering a full forensic accounting of all accounts belonging to the respondent and Opal Wyatt that are relevant to marital finances. The gavel hit the wood with a sound like a gunshot. I stood up slowly. My legs felt like they were made of stone, but they were solid. Tara squeezed my arm. We walked out of the courtroom and into the hallway. Russell was leaning against the wall near the elevators, his tie loosened, his eyes red. He looked like a man who had just watched his entire house burn down while he held the match. He stepped toward me as I approached. Joe, he whispered. The kids, you can't do this. You will see them every other weekend and on Wednesday evenings, I said. My voice felt foreign to me, deep and steady. That is what the temporary order says. That is not enough, he said, his voice rising. I am their father. You were also their father when you brought Kendra to places where Cody could see her, I told him. Do you remember Cody's drawing Russell? The house split in half with a jagged black line. He drew a woman with yellow hair on your side of the house. He is 8 years old. He saw you. He saw what you were doing long before I did. Russell's mouth opened, then closed. He had no defense for an 8-year-old's truth. Opal approached us, then the scent of white diamonds preceding her like a warning. Her face was a mask of cold fury. Jolene, this isn't over, she said. You think a judge's temporary order means you can just discard 12 years of family, Opal, I said, turning to face her. Your credit card statements are now part of a court record. Your text messages to Kendra are on the public docket. The judge just ordered your personal accounts to be audited. And I have 8 separate recordings of you lying to my face about your knowledge of this affair. South Carolina is a one-party consent state. Section 1730 of the state code makes those recordings perfectly legal. Opal's jaw tightened so hard I thought her teeth might crack. Her hand was buried in her coach bag, clutching her navy blue notebook as if it could save her. For 12 years, she had looked at me as a daughter-in-law, then as a nuisance, then as a victim. Now she finally looked at me as an equal. She looked at a woman she could no longer control. She didn't say another word. She turned on her heel and walked toward the parking garage alone. She didn't wait for her son. She didn't look back at the wreckage she had funded. She called 34 years of her own marriage a survival. She had expected me to survive too. She never imagined I would choose to live instead. 2 weeks later, the house in Greenville felt different. I had opened every window for 3 days straight to let the stale air out. The smell of Opal's perfume was finally gone. Russell had moved into a small apartment near his office. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was Saturday morning. Cody was sitting at the kitchen island eating cereal, and Lila was on the floor with her crayons. I was at the counter with my laptop open. My LinkedIn profile was visible on the screen, marketing professional re-entering the workforce after 8 years. I had an email from a firm in Greenville that Tara had recommended. They wanted to see me on Tuesday. Cody looked up from his bowl. "Mom, is Dad coming today? He is coming at 10 to take you to the park," I said. "Is Grandma Opal coming too?" Lila asked without looking up from her coloring book. "Grandma Opal is at her house in Mount Pleasant," I told her, keeping my voice gentle. "You will see her when the time is right." Cody paused his spoon halfway to his mouth. "Are we still a family?" I walked over and sat on the stool next to him. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Always," I said. "Families just look a little different sometimes. Like how Lila's drawings used to be stick figures and now they have clothes and hats. We are just changing our shape." Lila looked up, then her eyes bright. "And shoes, Mom. I draw them with shoes now." "And shoes," I agreed. I looked at the refrigerator. Cody's old drawing of the house split in half was gone. In its place was a new one he had made yesterday. It was a house with one solid roof and 3 people inside. There was a large window on the side. Outside the window, a sun was shining. There was no black line. My phone vibrated on the counter. It was a text from Kendra Nolan. "Settlement with my attorney is finalized," she wrote. "I am moving to Columbia next month for a fresh start. Thank you for not hating me." I typed back a short response. "Good luck, Kendra." I didn't need to say anything else. She was just another woman who had been caught in the machinery of the Wyatt family's lies. She was moving on, and so was I. Tara had called me the night before with the final updates. Russell was barred from alimony because fault had been proven. The equitable distribution was trending toward a 62-38 split in my favor to account for the dissipated assets. I had the house, though I would have to buy out his remaining share over the next 3 years. Opal's financial records had been a goldmine of evidence. The judge had noted that 37 coordinated transfers to fund a secret life constituted a system of concealment, not maternal generosity. Opal wouldn't be charged with a crime, but the records were public now. Russell's sister Amy had called me from Raleigh crying. She told me she always knew their mother covered for him, but she could never prove it. She thanked me for finally bringing it into the light. Opal's relationship with her daughter was fractured. Her relationship with her grandchildren was now subject to my discretion. She was alone in her big house in Mount Pleasant, left with nothing but her notebook and her pride. $114,000. That was the price of Russell's secret world. But the real cost was the 8 years I had spent believing I was invisible. I had traded my career and my voice for a lie, thinking I was protecting my children. My mother had paid that price until her heart stopped. I had paid it for 8 years, and now I was taking the rest of my life back. It was a beautiful afternoon. I walked out onto the back porch and sat on the swing. The kids were playing in the grass, their laughter echoing off the trees. I opened my laptop and started drafting my response to the job interview. I looked down at my left wrist. My mother's Timex was still there. The second hand was ticking steadily. The glass was still scratched. But I had replaced the leather strap last week. It was a small change. I was keeping the watch, but I was changing the way it stayed on my arm. Cody ran up the steps, his face flushed from the sun. "Mom, come, push me on the swing." I closed the laptop and stood up. I felt the sun on my face. I felt the weight of the watch on my wrist. I felt the solid ground beneath my feet. I walked toward my son, and for the first time in a decade, I wasn't just surviving. I was beginning. 6 months after the final court hearing, the air in my mother's old attic smelled of dust, cedar, and the heavy silence of secrets kept too long. I sat on the floor, surrounded by cardboard boxes and the fading remnants of a life spent in the shadows of others. My new job as a marketing manager in Greenville kept my days busy, and my mind sharp, but the weekends were for the ghosts. I reached for a small wooden trunk tucked under the eaves. Inside, wrapped in an old flannel shirt, I found a small weathered notebook with a cracked spine. It looked remarkably like Opal's navy blue ledger, but as I opened it, the numbers told a different story. My mother hadn't recorded betrayals or the cost of a son's infidelity. She had recorded every dime she ever saved in coffee cans and under floorboards. $10 from the sewing job in October. $5 saved by skipping lunch for a week. $20 from selling the old silver tea set. Every entry was a sacrifice, a silent conspiracy of protection aimed at one goal: my college tuition. My mother hadn't stayed with my father because she was weak. She had stayed and saved so that I would never have to stay anywhere I wasn't loved. I looked down at my left wrist. I had finally taken her old Timex to a jeweler on King Street. The glass was polished now, clear and bright, and I had replaced the worn strap with a strip of high-end Italian leather. It was still her watch counting the seconds she had lost, but it was anchored to me in a way that felt like a choice. She had given me the time. I was finally learning how to spend it. The next evening, I found myself at a dinner party hosted by a new colleague. Across the table, a woman with tired eyes and a forced smile mentioned her husband's late nights and the way he always smelled like a restaurant she'd never visited. The table went quiet, that familiar, suffocating domestic silence. I didn't offer a platitude or a sympathetic nod. Instead, I reached into my bag, pulled out a business card for Tara Buckley, and slid it across the white tablecloth. "The silence isn't a peace treaty," I told her quietly. "It is a countdown. Money is just another way to say I can take care of myself." I realized this later that week as I helped Cody open his first savings account at the bank. I watched him sign his name with focused, messy letters, and I knew that he would never grow up believing that love required the surrender of one's identity. I was leaving my daughter a map so she would never get lost in the dark, and I was teaching my son that a home is built on transparency, not hidden ledgers. I stood on my porch that evening watching a sunset that belonged entirely to me. The orange and purple light bled across the sky, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to rush inside to start a dinner for a man who wasn't coming home. I picked up the navy notebook I had taken from Opal. I had crossed out her records of resort stays and jewelry and started filling the pages with my own plans, mortgage payments, school tuitions, and the dates for a real vacation with my children. We spend years clipping coupons and saving pennies, only to realize we were the ones being spent. I found my voice at a boarding gate in a cold airport surrounded by strangers and the smell of burnt coffee. It was the moment I realized that the second hand on my watch was moving for me too. I want to know where you found yours. Are you still waiting for the plane to land, or are you ready to realize that you've had the ticket out all along? The sun is setting over the low country now, casting long amber shadows across the porch of the house that finally feels like yours. As you sit here, the silence is no longer a heavy, suffocating blanket of things unsaid, but a clean slate. You look at your children playing in the yard and realize that the most important lesson you have learned isn't about betrayal, but about the high cost of your own invisibility. You spent 12 years believing that being a good wife meant being a silent partner, a woman who clipped coupons and folded laundry while someone else managed the blueprints of her life. You leaned so heavily into the idea of family stability that you forgot that stability is a lie if it is built on a foundation of your own ignorance. The first hard lesson this journey has taught you is that financial transparency is not a lack of trust. It is a requirement for self-respect. You were a marketing director who once managed multi-million-dollar budgets, yet you allowed yourself to be convinced that you were too tired or too busy to look at the bank statements. You let the word provider become a shield that Russell used to hide $114,000 in stolen marital assets. You learned that when a man tells you not to worry about the money, he is often telling you not to look at the truth. Moving forward, you understand that love and a private bank account are not mutually exclusive. You have learned that every woman needs a ledger of her own, not because she expects to leave, but because she deserves to know exactly where she stands. You are teaching your daughter that her worth is not a gift granted by a husband's paycheck, and you are teaching your con that a man's strength is found in his honesty, not in his ability to pay for silence. You have also learned that family loyalty is a dangerous weapon when it is used to enable destruction. You spent years seeking the approval of a woman like Opal, thinking her sweet tea and homemade mac and cheese were signs of a bond. You learned the hard way that an enabler is just as dangerous as a cheater, and that a mother's love becomes a conspiracy when it is used to finance a son's double life. You have learned to set boundaries that are made of iron rather than silk. You no longer mistake politeness for safety, and you understand that you are under no obligation to sacrifice your peace to preserve someone else's reputation. You have broken a generational cycle of survival, refusing to follow the path of your mother, who stayed until her heart literally gave out from the exhaustion of her own silence. Perhaps the most visceral lesson is that your children see much more than you ever wanted them to. You thought you were protecting Cody and Lila by staying, but Cody's jagged black line through his drawing of your house proved that children breathe in the tension you think you are hiding. You have learned that a house split in two is far more damaging than two houses that are whole. By standing up and choosing a difficult truth over a comfortable lie, you have given them a mother who is a person, not a martyr. You are showing them that it is better to rebuild from the ashes than to live in a burning building just because you recognize the wallpaper. You have learned that your voice is the only thing that can truly protect them, and that your silence was never a shield. It was just a way to let the fire burn longer. As you look at the Timex on your wrist, the second hand ticking with a steady, independent rhythm, you realize that you have moved from a woman who is being spent to a woman who is doing the spending. You have reclaimed your career, your finances, and your identity from the machinery of a family that saw you as an accessory rather than a human being. You found your voice in a cold airport at a boarding gate, and you used the law of South Carolina to turn the very weapons used against you into the keys to your freedom. You have learned that the only person responsible for your protection is you, and that the greatest betrayal you ever committed was the one where you betrayed yourself by staying quiet for so long. Now, as the stars begin to poke through the Carolina sky, you realize that your story is not just yours alone. It belongs to every woman who has ever felt a chill in her marriage and told herself it was just the weather. It belongs to every mother who has found a receipt and decided to bury it rather than dig up the truth. You are standing on solid ground now, and the plane has finally landed. But what about you? Have you ever felt that same cold realization at the back of your neck? Have you ever found yourself sitting in a quiet car at 10 o'clock at night, realizing that the life you built is actually a cage with a gilded door? Where did you find the courage to finally speak up, or are you still sitting in that airport chair, clutching a boarding pass to a destination that was never meant for you? We all have a Navy notebook hidden somewhere in our lives. The question is, are you ready to open yours and see what the numbers actually say?